Hello, everyone. It's me, Ari Dawson, call me Rashid. I'm your anthropologist and sociologist. Thanks for being here. Please hit the like button, share this live stream, subscribe to the channel, become a member of the channel, and don't forget, donate the links below. If you want to contribute to the fund of my PhD, write PhD with your donation. Thank you very much. Links are below. And don't forget, you can always check my novels on Amazon. Here are a few of them. Praise the Lord. All right. So let's see, we're all here. My laptop is right over there, but let me get my mobile phone. I'll follow the live stream over here, my mobile phone also, or so that I can see the live chat right over here. And I'll check if you all can hear me clearly also. Just one moment. Mm, okay. Let me know if you all can hear me. All right, that's good. You should be able to hear me clearly now. As the live chat is playing also. So, in my also my previous live stream, in one of my previous live streams I did in the past few days, I've explained that when it comes to bad situations, if you partake in the bad situation, you're also responsible and you cease being a victim. I explained that. Now I'm going to elaborate on that a little bit before continuing with today's teaching, because today's teaching requires you to understand this. All right? Look, if you're in a supermarket buying groceries and out of the blue, there's some armed men coming in with masks on, there's a robbery, you're in a bad situation, but you're not part of the bad situation. If you're in a supermarket, armed men come in and see it's a door right over there, you can run away without the perpetrator seeing you. Now you can easily run out of the situation, and once you're out, you can call the cops and get help. But what if you're in a supermarket? Armed men out of the blue come in. People are going to the ground. You know it's a hostage situation, but the perpetrators are all the way there, and you can easily run away, escape with that door over here. If you decide not to run to that door when you have the opportunity and high probability of getting away safely, now you have become part of the situation. Because if you ran out of there, you could have called the police and do something about it. Now, look, it's different when you're in a supermarket. Armed robbers come in, and armed robbers are walking near the door, or one of them has a view on the door. In that case, you don't run and risk being killed. But if you have the opportunity there to just get out, you should be out immediately. The moment you become afraid, think, oh, what if they see me? What if this happens? Even though if the perpetrators are all the way at the other side of the supermarket, you can easily run away through that door. You should do it swiftly to get out of the situation, and then you can call and inform others so that something can be done about it. I'm using this as a parable, but you get what I'm saying. Is it always possible for you to stay safely leave a situation? No. But if you're in a situation that's bad, don't partake in it. Don't agree to it. Don't condone it. Externally, you may comply because you're being threatened, but it doesn't automatically mean you're part of it. Understand this. Is this clear to you? The difference between being in a bad situation and partaking in a bad situation. Is that the difference clear to you? Let me know in the live chat. Let me know. See the live chat right over here. God is good. Hidden Gem is here. Gloss Cannon Gaming is here. Violet's here too. Okay. Now that this difference is clear, I I'm gonna give another parable to you. Okay. Let's say you have, okay, let me use the whiteboard for now because that's why I'm here. Uh, that's why I put that camera on. Let me grab my stifts so I can. Okay, you should be able to see the whiteboard clearly. Okay. Okay. Let's say with this one doesn't work. Okay. let's say we have Lisa. Okay, you can see it, Lisa. Now this is Lisa over here, and she is married to Bob. I'm using common names here, so hold on. Okay, now this is Bob's parents. Hold on. Rick and let's think of it, Amy. Okay, now these are Lisa's parents in law. These are just Rob's parents. But now, let's say now that Rick, let me give some date, let's give some ages also to this parable. By the way, can you all see it clearly? This should be clear. Okay. Lisa is 25, Bob is 30. Let's say Rick is 55 and Amy is also 55. Okay? Now, Rick over here is a veteran from the military, but Rick never dealt with his post-traumatic stress disorder. He never dealt with his PTSD. Okay? So Rick now developed this toxic anger that he took out on his wife and his other and his children, including Bob. Now, this Rick has been out of the military for around 20 years. He's been out of the military. Okay? So when Bob was 10 years old, he left the military. Before that, Bob didn't see him that often. He knew it was Rick was his dad, but didn't see him that often. The thing is, Bob was in his early teens when his father wasn't deployed anymore in the military, and he began to take out his toxic rage on his family. Now, Rick and Amy are still married, despite the fact that Rick is still offloading toxic anger over and over again. Now, I have a question for you all. Is this wife, Amy, who stayed married to this Rick, is she a victim? Let me know in the live chat. What do you think? Let me know what you think. Is Amy a victim of Rick? Let me know. By the way, if you're in traffic, while you're driving a car or just walking, walking, you have to cross the street, please pay attention to the roads, obey the traffic rules. Don't look and write in the live chat because I don't want any traffic accidents on my watch. Thank you very much. Okay, let me see what the answers are. No, she's not a victim. She used to be a victim 20 years ago when Bob left the military and Bob refused to face himself and get therapy and treatment. Then she was a victim. After about 2 years staying with him, and it was clear that Rick wasn't willing to face anything, and Rick continued to damage himself and her and their children, she should have done what was best to divorce that man and take custody of her children so that her children wouldn't be furtherly physically, emotionally, and mentally harmed by their dad. Okay? It's Rick that decided to join the military. That's nothing to do with his children. His children weren't even born yet. So he decided to join the military, knowing full well that the military may cause some damage to you eventually. So he knew what he was signing up for. The thing is, he signed up for the military, not his wife, because he didn't meet his wife yet. He didn't met Amy yet back then. He decided to join the military. His children were not around yet, so it was his decision, not his children, because they weren't around. So if he joined the military, he even sacrificed time with his children to be in the military. And now he was discharged honorably. But instead of owning up to his decision, owning up to what happened to him, and decide, okay, I'm a father and a husband, so I need to be there in quality for my family, he decided to offload on the people he should be guarding and protecting to his best ability. So Rick is a perpetrator. Amy, till about 2 years, she had time enough to realize that it's not going to get better. I need to go into safety, and my children need to go into safety. The fact she stayed meant now she was not part of the bad situation, and she was facilitating his violence because she kept telling her children, don't talk to your father like that. He's your father, this and that. She kept acting as if her husband was an honorable man. And she insisted that her children that she had with this man kept giving both her and her partner honor. But here's the thing, she also abused the Bible, saying, in the Bible it's written, honor your mother and father, she have a long life on the earth. So what's going on now? She became delusional, not want to own up to how horrible a husband has become. And because she kept the battle going like it was an honorable man, she dragged her children in it. So now she facilitated the harm he was doing to himself and others, and she also caused collateral damage to her children. So she's not a victim. Simple as that. Okay? Now, Bob wasn't the only child. Bob has, let's say, 4 other brothers and 1 sister. Okay, so now Bob is not the oldest. He's like the fourth child. He's the fourth child, the first, second, third, it's the fifth, sixth. Okay. Now, here's what gets interesting. Bob often complained about the anger issue of his father. His father wouldn't deal with it. But guess what? He still remains in close contact with his father. His father never apologized to him for offloading his unrest onto him. He never apologized for causing harm and damage to his family. He never even admitted he was wrong. He always made excuses. And now that Bob is a grown man, he kind of put it beside him and says, he's my dad. He's the only dad I have. And he keeps remembering the good things his father did for him. Now, I have a question for you now. Is Bob in his right mind? Let me know in the live chat. Is this Bob in his right mind? Let me know. So again, Bob is a grown man now. He's married. He still has close contact with his abusive father, who never owned up to any failure, nor any wrongdoing, who didn't even admit the damage he caused himself and his family, and he never made effort to improve, nor to, how do I say, make up as far as he can all the damage that he did. But now, Bob, who stays in close contact with his father, is Bob in his right mind? That's what I'm asking you. I'm going to wait for 1 more minute. What do you think? Is Bob in his right mind? Okay, I'll wait for like 50 seconds more to see what your answers are. I know this is, I would say, kind of a complicated situation, but in life, often you do encounter complicated situations. Okay, so it's good to use complicated variables to teach you these things. Okay, got one answer over here. Violet says no. If you're at work, don't worry. Okay, you can always replay it. No problem. But okay, no, Bob is not in his right mind. Because remember, his father was damaged during military service. But who put his father in the military? If it was mandatory service, it would be different. By this time, his father himself joined the military because, A, he just liked the idea. Okay? So Bob's father, had to go into therapy a long time ago to deal with things. Instead, Bob was damaged during his teenage years. So Bob is a damaged adult. Okay? So Bob is a damaged adult. Bob is not going around dumping anger like his father is doing and has been doing for the past 20 years. No, but here's the problem. Bob is not is not valuing himself properly. Let me tell you why. Who damaged Bob? Both his parents did. His dad for being violent, both physically and emotionally, and his mom for co-signing his father's bullshit. Okay? Now, Bob's younger sister, Jessie or Jessica, when she turned 18, she told her other siblings, I don't want to talk with mom and dad anymore. I'm out. She even left the country, did her studies abroad. Okay? And her four of her siblings agreed with her. They even helped her to pack her bags. One of the brothers even paid her plane ticket to leave. Bob was the one telling that sister, hey, Jessica, I know dad is not the best father there is, but hey, he still did his best. He's not the worst. And Lisa, no, not Lisa, Jessica eventually broke all contact with Bob. Now, what's going on here? Bob is granting a narcissistic allowance to both his parents. Bob knows very well both his parents are wrong, they're out of their minds, they're doing evil, they're harmful people, and nobody in their right mind should even be associated with them or hang out with them. Instead, Bob is now part of the fairy tale that his father is an honorable veteran that loves his community. He's now part of that lie, part of that deception. Now, Bob has an avoidance issue. When his father used to rage, when he was in teenage years, he would just, bow his head and just take it. Now that Bob is a grown man, at his workplace, he does the exact same thing. He never really negotiates with his employer. Bob often overworks. And because his employer is a so-called authority, he now is operating in this toxic people pleasing to any authority figure. But when it comes to people younger than him, he's very direct. Bob is very direct into your face, telling you how he feels, very direct, and you just have to take it. But here's the thing. He's never direct to his own father and mother. He's never direct towards the employer. No, he's only direct towards younger people of the teenagers and people he so-called doesn't like. So he decides that he doesn't like certain people. How come he doesn't dislike his own father, who actually did damage towards him? So in this case, Bob is granting a narcissistic allowance to his parents. And that means he is condoning and facilitating the violence of his parents. And by doing that, he's also harming the community because his siblings all removed themselves from their parents. They all did. All his all his five siblings decided, no, we don't want to deal with this. Now think about it. If Rick and Amy are all by themselves and none of their children nor grandchildren ever visits them, people in the neighborhood going to ask, "Hold on a minute, how come this honorable veteran over here, his own children will come to visit him? How come there's no grandchildren coming over? What goes on over here?" If they always stay away from their toxic parents, the community around realizes, "Hold on a minute, how come the children staying away from their parents like that? What's going on here?" So that would alert the community that something's wrong with Rick and Amy. And sooner or later, the people around will realize indeed Rick and Amy are not safe to be around. So the children are doing what the right thing by keeping themselves and their children in safety. But now, instead of Rick and Amy being left to their own devices, Bob keeps visiting them, keeps showing honor to them. And now the public or the environment gets the impression that Bob is the good son, the good child that honors his parents, and all the other children are horrible, ungrateful wretches. So Bob now is, due to his behavior, he's tricking people into thinking his parents are good and safe people while they're the opposite. And now he contributes to the perception that all his siblings are bad and ungrateful, and he's the good child. You know what I mean? So Bob is now harming both reputation of his siblings, and he's also putting the community in danger. You know why? Because Bob is now causing people to think his parents are safe and good. So anyone who thinks, hey, let's get involved with Rick and Amy, they're good people. They raise their children well. One of the children keeps coming around for them. And guess what? Rick will continue to dump his anger. Rick will continue to be violent. So everyone that gets involved with Rick and Amy eventually gets victimized by Rick and Amy. But guess what? The only reason the people around get victimized because they thought those were good people. How come they thought Rick and Amy were good people? Because that son of theirs that keeps acting like the good people. So anyone in the future that's harmed by Rick and Amy, Bob is responsible. It's not Bob who directly attacked and harmed those individuals, but Bob is to blame, and Bob's one of the cause of it because he's the one that kept facilitating and granting an alibi to his parents. Is it clear to you now what a narcissistic allowance is? Let me know in the live chat. By the way, if you're in traffic right now or you're at work, please behave yourself in traffic and at work, please. But if you're able to respond to live chat, please do. Um, so a narcissistic allowance is anytime you condone an individual being wrong and you make it easy for them to be wrong by offering comfort. That's a narcissistic allowance. Bob should have joined his siblings in boycotting his parents, not dealing with his parents, until his parents would repent and improve. If they don't improve, well, that's it. There are no loss for them. But the fact that Bob wanted to be seen as a good Christian, because Bob longed to have a pat on the back by both his parents and by the community, Bob, in his low self-worth, kept compensating for his low self-worth by being religious. By being religious, he ended up enabling and facilitating the violence of his parents and keep harming the community. Now, okay, so in this case, Bob is a perpetrator. He's not a victim. And as a matter of fact, Bob should have gone into therapy himself to deal with his toxic people pleasing of his when it comes to authority figures. Like his father, Rick. His direct, blunt attitude was just the beginning of that decay. But he wasn't like his father yet. But instead of owning up that he was dysfunctional and defective and he needed improvement, he would just act like nothing goes on. Now, Lisa has been married to Bob for over 5 years. Yes, he married young. Okay. Bob was 25, Lisa was 20. Okay. And they have two children together. Now, Lisa is not aware and she's not realizing Bob's toxicity. And she didn't even notice how horrible her parents-in-law were. Now, up until now, Lisa is the victim. Why? Because she's in a bad situation, not even realizing it's a bad situation. Okay? But guess what? Let's go forward a few years later. During argument in the house, Bob uh, threw one of their children to the floor. and their son was just 7 years old. He threw a 7-year-old to the floor. And suddenly, uh, he walked away. It took him days to apologize to his wife for what he did. And he said, it will never happen, this and that. Question to you. What should Lisa have done? What should Lisa do now that this violent incident happened towards one of their children? What should she do now? Also, because it took days before her husband apologized to her. He didn't even apologize to his son, who was 7 years old. He apologized to her. What should Lisa do now? Let me know in the live chat. What should Lisa do now? Let me know what you think. Violet said, leave him. I agree with you. It's one thing for a man to suddenly lose his cool towards his wife or towards his sex partner. But lose your cool towards a child that's offensive towards you, I'm sorry, but that's a whole nother level. There's a whole nother level of danger and violence, of instability also. Let's say Lisa decides to stay with him. She should at least force him to go into therapy on a regular basis and to own up to everything about him that doesn't add up. If she stays with the man and tries to forget about the incident, she now has become a perpetrator towards her own children. Why? Because the children didn't choose their parents. The children have no choice. They didn't choose to be here. They're here. So it's their obligation as adults to make sure the children are safe. So if Lisa decides to leave him at that point and take the children, she does the right thing. If there's an opportunity, or if there's a probability that Bob can change for the better, she should try to work it out. Absolutely, also for the sake of the children. But then there must be actual proof that that is highly probable that Bob will change for the better, or else she should just leave. Let's say now that Lisa stays with him, and she decides to forget about the incident. Guess who's not forgetting? The son. He doesn't forget about it. Let's say now that we go 10 years later. Their son, okay, let me tell you, that two children, let's say, their son, okay, the son is into rock and roll things, so that's why he has kind of a long hair and all that. Their son, James, is now 17. And let's say it was 5 years in the future. So that would mean she was 30, and 35, and then plus 10 is 40, and then 45. Okay? Okay. So now James is 17 years old, and so this is Lisa was 20, this 20, it's 75, about 75 years old now. Okay? Now, James is now 17. The incident happened 10 years earlier when he was 7 years old. The incident had an impact on him. But here's the thing, James talked about it with his friends in high school. He even talked about it with some of his teachers. And all the teachers and his teenage friends told him, James, what type of crap is this? You are a 7-year-old boy. Yes, you were talked a bit loud. But just because people talk a bit loud doesn't mean you lose your cool and you smack them to the ground. You don't even do that to an adult. Okay? If you do that to an adult, the police will come and arrest you, and you'll have a felony charge on you. And you were a 7-year-old boy. He could have caused you brain damage. If you fell too hard on your head, you could have died also. And your mom stayed with him without any consequence on forcing him to get therapy, nothing. And he never admitted to you that he lost school towards you, nothing like that. So even his teachers in high school and his friends told him, James, this is messed up. And James owned up they were messed up. Now James still had some um, trust issues towards authority figures. And his trust issues also led to him joining alternative groups on the internet, all of that. But guess what? Even though James was dysfunctional, he's, uh, he still owned up that he was dysfunctional. He knew he was dysfunctional and knew he had to do something about it. Contrary to his parents and grandparents from his father's side. You know what I mean? Now James, because James was realistic, during his teenage years, he didn't want to see his grandparents anymore because he quickly realized, hold on a minute, the way grandpa is talking to grandma is not proper. And the fact that grandma keeps brushing off is not good. So James, when he was 12 years old, already understood that his mom and dad had a similar uh, pattern of violence like his paternal grandparents. So around age 13, James distanced himself from his grandparents. And as a matter of fact, James was more often out of the house with his friends out there than he was at home with his parents and with his other sibling. So in this case, James, the moment he turns 18, okay, let's say he turned 18, 41, 46, those one passed away by then. By the time he was 18, his grandparents have passed away. He decided to go no contact with his parents. In this case, James took responsibility for his own safety. You know what I mean? Now, James was still dysfunctional. There were still things James had to own up to, but he did the basic thing for his own well being. So, James was not part of this bad situation anymore. Now, the bad situation began with Rick decades ago. Amy, his wife, joined. Most of their children left. Bob remained part of the bad situation. So, Bob also became just like them. Lisa eventually also being part of the situation. But their son James said, hell no, not over here. James did not grant a narcissistic allowance to his parents like Bob did with his. James made plain this chain is breaking right over here. All right? And we all have to be like James. Not only when it comes to our own relatives, whether it's parents, grandparents, aunties, uncles, and all that. We should be like that all the time. Look, James grew up in a bad situation. That was not his fault. James was damaged mentally and emotionally by the bad situation he grew up in. Was on him. But it was on him to, to admit it at a young age. It was up to him to admit it that the situation is bad so that he at least could realize he needs better. What if James, because James already had a toxic coping mechanism, though his trust issues. So James still has to go to therapy and recovery as an adult, absolutely. But at least he did his part. What if James did not want to own up the bad situation he grew up in? He would have joined the bad situation. Now Rick and Amy, his paternal grandparents, already dead. So now the violence is continuing from Rick and Amy towards Lisa and Bob. Lisa and Bob goes to James and James' future partner. And that's how generational curses or transgenerational trauma is passed on from generation to generation. Now, look, if let's say James was adopted by them, it wasn't their natural child. In that case, James had no direct ancestral line with Bob's parents, but still, because he grew up there, he would adapt with. So, generational curses isn't just about the bloodline; it's also with the things you join. If you are a grown man or grown woman and decide to work at the company, and the company has a toxic culture, you now If you stay there, eventually you will become part of that toxic situation, and now you're passing it on 20 years later to new employees. So there was in the previous generation in that company, there was a toxic culture. You came there. Instead of leaving eventually, you stayed there. And after you've been working there for 20 years, you now are the one transferring it to the new college students who just graduated. So generational curses can also be passed on culturally. It's not always through the bloodline. You know what I mean? Sometimes also culturally it's passed on. So narcissistic allowances. Now, a narcissistic allowance is not the same as the escalation. When you de-escalate a bad situation, you may make an excuse for some behavior, some situation, but you don't really mean it. You just make an excuse, de-escalate. Meanwhile, you look for a way to deal with it. So when you make excuses just de-escalate situation, that's not a narcissistic allowance. A narcissistic allowance when you know full well that it doesn't add up, but you don't want to deal with the fact it doesn't add up because it would require action on your part and will also require you to own up to the fact that, hey, hold on a minute. How come I didn't, how come I put up with this? Because there's some self-reflection you don't want to do. You're the one escaping to, and because you want to continue to escape, you don't want to admit how bad the situation is or that something needs to be done about it. That is a narcissistic allowance. Now, what I'm about to say now may sound radical to a lot of people, but let me tell you one thing. The Western world is one giant narcissistic allowance. How many of you understand what I just said about the Western world? The Western world is one giant narcissistic allowance. How many of you understand that? What I just said? Let me know in the live chat. If you don't understand it, just say it because I'm going to explain it anyway. But how many of you understood what I just said? The Western world is one giant narcissistic allowance. And let me explain why. As I mentioned before in my previous live streams, the Western world is a toxic mixture of the Greco-Roman world, which was based on scapegoating and blood sacrifice. It's a mixture of that and the gospel. And the gospel is against blood sacrifice. The gospel tells us to rely on the sacrifice of Christ on our behalf. So the gospel of Christ Jesus and the Greco-Roman civilization don't go together. So pagan Christianity or the Catholic system, I'm not talking about Catholic people, I'm talking about Catholic system. The Catholic system was established in the year 325 AD at the First Council of Nicaea. Pagan Christianity also established Western civilization, this toxic mixture. So Western civilization could have never succeeded, and it will never succeed, and it cannot succeed because it's a toxic mixture, it's unstable from the start. I've explained in multiple live streams that this is the reason why financial profit is so central to Western civilization, and which led to the development of capitalism during the Dutch Empire. So Western civilization cannot admit its own failure without admitting that itself is a failure to combine Greco-Roman civilization with the gospel. Greco-Roman civilization should have been reformed by the gospel, should not have been combined with the gospel. So this combination should never happen. So that this combination itself is a failure and will only bring forth failures. So for the West to admit its failures would mean to admit that they themselves are a failure for not admitting that the so-called civilization is not an actual civilization to begin with. You know what I mean? So in the Western world, they developed this philosophy called free will, and from free will, you have this philosophy of personal space, boundaries, privacy, national sovereignty. All of these things come down to you have a right to will whatever you will. You can choose whatever you want to choose, and we just have to take it and deal with it. But the problem is, if you say that people have a right to will whatever they will, feel whatever they feel, think however they want to think, what if a bunch of people decide to be dysfunctional and cause harm to the environment? They would say free will, the right to will what they will. But now you have the police and the judge to put them in prison. What have done? I mean, I thought they had free will, the right to will whatever they will. No, but the thing is, no creature has the right to will whatever they will, think everything, feel whatever they feel. Because that would mean that even God Himself has to shut His mouth and allow us to think and feel whatever we want to do. That's not true. The whole ideology of free will puts mankind above the Heavenly Father. It's just like it's written in the book of Romans. It's worshiping and serving the creation above the Creator. It's idolatry. Yes, human beings have a will. We have an ability to choose. Just because you have an ability to choose doesn't mean you're entitled to choose whatever you want, and we have to put up with whatever you choose. The ability to choose doesn't guarantee, it doesn't, it's not automatically entitled to choose whatever you want to choose. If you choose what's against the will of the Heavenly Father, you're harming yourself and others, and you need to repent. And people have a right to force you to change your mind. And they have a right to take action against you if you remain harmful. The whole idea of free will implies that a human being can choose to think and feel against and contrary to the will of the Heavenly Father, and therefore harm themselves and others. And we just have to put up with the harm that overcomes us because they have a will. That means if a mother and father decide to sell their children to a pedophile ring, that means we have to stand back. It's none of our business. It's free will. They have authority. They can will whatever they will. Only God can intervene if God wants. What the heck? What type of shit is that? The Western world, with its toxic philosophies, is one giant narcissistic allowance. And that is why the Western world keeps attracting reprobates all over the world. I remember when I was a teenager in high school, when it came to the topic of multiculturalism. Back then it was called multiculti. Well, by now the whole idea of multiculturalism is thrown away for the most part by policymakers, because even scholars admitted that it's a failure. And I'm an anthropologist and sociologist, so I can clearly explain to you why multiculturalism cannot work. The reason why multiculturalism cannot work is because a culture is a collective establishment to motivate the population to do better. A culture is meant to motivate you to do better. Okay? Now, if you have 3 or 5 cultures who have similar roots, and all those cultures are functional, so they actually motivate the young people to do better, then they can get along together. Absolutely. But if you have a quote unquote culture that's a failure by design, that means that culture is one big narcissistic allowance. It doesn't work. So if you have a population that doesn't have a functioning culture, you only have collective narcissistic allowances, and now you have people coming from actual cultures at work, it's not going to work together. You know what I mean? If the Western world or if the Western civilization actually was functional and productive, it could have gotten along with those different cultures being around. But the fact the Western world, by its very design, is a failure, it can't even deal with itself in a peaceful way, let alone deal with other cultures around. So multiculturalism was bound to fail. Well, of course, when all the way back in high school, I couldn't know this. I was just learning about it. But I can remember the teacher telling us that mass migration contributes to quality in the Western world because you have all those highly educated people, whether it's surgeons, medical doctors, lawyers, engineers, all or artists, all those people who are ill treated and who will suffer in those so-called third world countries can all find a better life in the West. So you have this. Now, I'm not saying the teacher meant it this way, but this is a racial philosophy. It's a racist philosophy of the Western world. Again, not everyone that believed this was a racist, absolutely not. And I'm sure the teacher that was there didn't mean it this way. But this is a racist philosophy that the Western world is the best, and everyone in the world wants to be a Westerner. And if everyone that comes over to the West will become a Westerner too. Well, guess what? A lot of people came to the West and they left again because they thought, what the heck is this? Well, some came and decided, hell no, I'm not going to assimilate into this. I'm going to keep the culture of my ancestors over here. That's what a lot of the migrants from Muslim countries did. That's how the West, that's how Islamization in the West revived again. Because there was Islamization in the past already, before the Second World War. Just think about the Ottoman Empire. Go back to the Middle Ages, you had the Moors that Islamicized Europe. So Islamization came back to Europe because a lot of the migrants from Muslim countries thought, hold on a minute, I cannot assimilate into this. But anyway, the idea that the Western world is a magnet that attracts all the quality people from the rest of the world, that's simply not true. It was true that in the past, up until the end of the 2000s, so around 2010, 2011, maybe 2012, around the end of Obama's first term as president. Till that time, a lot of people in the world believed you can move to the West and you can achieve a lot. But guess what? Times have changed. Since 2012, much of the dysfunction and failures of the West have become obvious, especially after 2020. And we all know what happened in 2020. I don't have to go into details. Since 2020 and the worldwide disaster that happened in 2020, nobody believes anymore in so-called supremacy and competence of the so-called Western world. Just look how they're handling the whole war in Ukraine situation. Look how they're handling um, what's going on in Gaza right now. No, I don't approve genocide under no circumstance. Amen. I don't care who does it. But anyway, right now, now that the whole hoax of the West as the best is gone, you are going to see mass immigration away from the West. For example, you have this political and economic collaboration called BRICS. Okay, now we're going to talk. It's getting a bit political right now, so let me show you BRICS. Hold on, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, hold on. Let me share my screen with you. Okay, can you all see my screen? Let me know in the live chat, please. Okay, BRICS is an intergovernmental organization comprising Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Iran, Egypt, Ethiopia, and United Arab Emirates. Originally identified to highlight investment opportunities, the grouping evolved into a cohesive geopolitical bloc with the governments meeting annually at formal summits and coordinating multilateral policies since 2009. Bilateral relations among BRICS are conducted mainly on the basis of non-interference, equality, and mutual benefit. Okay? Now this is different from these are the BRICS nations today, who are part of this intergovernmental coalition. Intergovernmental means separate countries collaborate together on similar policies. That's intergovernmental. Supranational is something like the European Union, where you have a whole political entity above the nations. That's not how BRICS works. Okay, there's no BRICS government. Okay, it's just a coalition of countries following similar policies. Okay, Argentina was about to join, but it withdrew its application also. Now, I'm not going too much into the BRICS thing also because it's a bit controversial also because there was also a rumor that they wanted to come up with their own currency. Um, The problem is with BRICS that the countries are quite different with different problems also. But you may ask yourself, why does BRICS even exist? Okay, this is vacant now because of what happened in Iran recently. BRICS, okay, let's say these are the countries of BRICS, okay? Okay, let me view this in the browser. I'm gonna show this over here. Now let's type in Western world. Now look at this. I'm viewing browser. The dark blue is the Western world. The light blue is considered an extension of the Western world, but it's not actually the Western world. Even though Russia and Eastern Europe are also considered the West often, but formally, when policymakers talk about the Western world, it's the dark blue nations over here. And these are the BRICS nations. What do you notice? It's mainly non-Western countries that are part of BRICS. So what's going on now here is that BRICS is a way to bypass the Western world. As I mentioned before, hold on, it's a combination of the Greco-Roman world and Christianity, okay, or the gospel. It cannot work. So the crimes and atrocities of the West led to a lot of societal dysfunction, and this dysfunction harming also the rest of the world. So now you have a resistance going on in the world, not a military resistance, but you have a political and financial resistance going on to actually bypass the Western world altogether. That's the European Union, the United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and the United States. The West is being put aside now by BRICS. And I'm not sure, but BRICS may increase in the future. I'm not saying that BRICS guarantees going to be a success because all these countries have quite different challenges. Some even have conflicts with one another. But and also the whole Ukraine situation also makes it a bit complicated. But also the Palestine situation also. But the fact alone you have this is to show that people have enough. They want to bypass the Western world. That means the European Union, United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the United States of America as much as possible. And I dare to say that the whole Palestine and Israel conflict is going to be resolved by BRICS, not the United States nor other Western power. Remember, it's the West that brought forth this conflict there to begin with the Balfour Declaration and all of that. I already explained that in a previous live stream I made a little while back, or I believe last week. So what I'm saying here is that the Western world is one giant narcissistic allowance. So the Western world did attract quality people from elsewhere, but a lot of those quality people realize eventually what the heck is this. So right now the Western world is mainly attracting reprobates, wasteful, negative minded, demon possessed people from the rest of the world. That's what the Western world is attracting right now. I dare to say that a big portion of the migrants and asylum seekers are coming in are not actual refugees nor asylum seekers, nor people actually are in danger. There are actually a lot of people, for a big portion, young men of military age that don't want to contribute, but just want to come to Europe or the United States or Canada or anywhere in the West and have an easy life and going after the women in the Western world because they perceive them as easy. That's what's going on right now. And little by little, a lot of people in the West are realizing this. But instead of owning up to the situation, they blame mass migration. Mass migration is a result of colonization that happened in the past and also capitalism that goes on right now. They should renounce colonialism. At least they should renounce all the crimes of colonialism. the Spanish Empire did contribute a lot to what today is Latin America. They should renounce the violence of colonialism, and they should renounce capitalism and be focused on building communities again. Then you wouldn't need mass migration. But now, because capitalism is draining the Western people and it hinders them in starting families and building community, you have a low birth rate, and that's why mass migration becomes something required to keep the financial flow going. So in the Western world, you have the far right. Let's see if there's something about that. Far right. Hold on. So now you have far right politics coming up again. Not all of them are directly expressed like this one over here, but you have a lot of far right politics coming up right now, a lot of populism coming up right now as resistance to the decline that goes on in the West. But this decline is the failure of your own parents and grandparents for not owning up that after the Second World War, something had to change dramatically for the better. Okay? So the solution is there needs to be there needs to be a turning point towards the gospel. Christ has become the center, so you will have a Christ-centered civilization that developed as a result. Or the Western world will be fully, or the Islamization will overtake the West to the fullest extent. It's one of the two. But anyway, I hope this is all clear to you. And I connected the topic of narcissistic allowance to the wider politics goes on in the world because it's important to make this connection too. Amen. Now, let's go back to. Okay. So let me stop the screen sharing. So is this topic of narcissistic allowances clear to you now? Is it clear to you now that narcissistic allowances aren't just things individuals do? It's something is done collectively by groups, some even nations. Now, a narcissistic allowance can also be that you're very hard on crime. You can't be hard against something without having something better to replace it. If there's a lot of crime happening in a neighborhood, you can be very hard on the crime, more police, longer prison sentences. That's not going to solve the crime. It's all going to bring more problems to the community. You need to be willing to admit, okay, there's a lot of crime. Why is it happening? What can we do about it to make it better? That's how we should do. Just fighting something without actually replacing it with something much better is also a narcissistic allowance. Because now you give a narcissistic allowance to the people who are escaping. If there's a problem unfolding, everyone around and everyone in the problem should admit it's a problem, and we all need to come together and admit what can we do to make it better. Just fighting the problem in a harsh way is given the illusion that, oh, only certain people are the problem. The rest of the public is not complicit. So that's also a narcissistic allowance. So those zero tolerance policies towards crime, most of the time, it's not but a narcissistic allowance in disguise. Much of the Republican policies in the United States of America, including much of the far right policies right now that are unfolding, are not about narcissistic allowances. To blame it all on the foreigners and all on the quote unquote losers, instead of us look at ourselves and admitting we need to be better. All right? All right. Are there any questions about this topic? Please let me know in the live chat. All right. All right, still morning. Okay. God is good. Are there any questions? Let me know, please. While some of you write down your questions, again, check my novels on Amazon also. Here are a few of them. You can check them on Amazon. Thank you very much. There are more coming up very soon. Apart from that, like this live stream, share it with others, subscribe to the channel, become a member of the channel. Also, don't forget, donate the links below. If you want to contribute to the fund of my PhD, write PhD for donation. Thank you very much. And let's see if there are any questions. No, I didn't get any questions. Well, thank you all for being here. Keep agreeing with Christ. I need to go now. Get something to break my fast, to get some brunch. No lunch this afternoon yet. I'll see you next time, guys. Shalom.